What is America to me? A name, a map, or a flag I see.
This is a great, great country that had gotten a little soft, and we didn't have that same competitive edge that we needed over the last couple of decades. We need to get back on track.
What is America?
Well, he went on to say it's still the best place on earth to be, although he seemed to have some difficulty in explaining why in that interview. Was that at BET? Or that was one of the local interviews he did yesterday. They're talking about America. He always seems a little halting when he talks about America's greatness, but America had grown a little soft. That's just what we want to hear from our president. Hey, thanks a lot. Morning in America to, hey, softies. I don't know about him, but I actually work 3 jobs and have 3 kids. I work really hard. I don't want anyone telling me I'm soft. Joining us now, a man who's also not soft, George W. Will. George F. Will, of course, ABC News and one of the best columnists ever, and New York Times best-selling author, and we love having him on. George, America's just grown soft.
Well, if it has something to do with the fact that we've developed an entitlement mentality and then offloaded many of our responsibilities onto the government of the sort that the man calling us soft favors.
Yeah, I mean, they create the dependency and celebrate it, and then they say, well, you've all gotten soft. That's just wild.
We get 20% of disposable income in America now comes from government. Defined benefit pension plans are almost exclusively a perk of public employees. 1 in 7 households is on food stamps. 1 in 6 is on Medicaid, which is ostensibly for the working poor. Student loans and mortgages, the 2 largest financial decisions the average family makes, are henceforth and forever probably largely transactions with the federal government, and he wonders why we're going soft.
George, moving on from him to this Republican field, now there are a couple of things bubbling out there. Number one, there is some attempt to explain the poor performance by Rick Perry at the last debate, and there's a piece today out in the Telegraph saying that, well, basically his wife prodded him to get into the race. He was perfectly content to be governor of Texas, but his wife said, look, you have a duty to get in there. You're pretty good at this stuff, and you have a duty to get into this race. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, apparently Chris Christie's wife has given him the green light to run for president. So now the wives, I guess, are calling all the shots, and we're supposed to, I guess, all be thrilled that Chris Christie might be getting into this race now. I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Let's take this one wife at a time. I went down to San Antonio to have lunch in a little hamburger joint with Rick Perry about 4 weeks before he announced for president, and wrote a column about it in which I quoted him talking about his wife, saying that you have a duty to do this. I do not, however, think that she prodded a reluctant candidate into this. I don't think he burns with desire to do this. He would not have written the book he wrote if he had long-term plans to run for president, because it was, strictly speaking, an impolitic book on subjects like Social Security. On the other hand, now take Mr. Christie. I went up to see him, had lunch with him, wrote a column about him, in which I said, this was about 6 weeks ago, maybe 7 or 8 now, which I said, Christie will not run for president, and here's why. I sent it to him and said, please read for accuracy. He said, nothing wrong with that. He is on the Princeton Board of Trustees. All New Jersey governors are ex officio members. I'm on the board. I spoke with him last Saturday. And I'm not going to divulge a private conversation. We weren't talking on the record, but there's nothing in that conversation that would lead me to believe that there's anything in this speculation about him. 2 things are illustrated by this speculation. This is an interesting story, not about Chris Christie, but about American journalism, which is so ravenous for content and so easily manipulated that anyone can get up and say, I think he's going to run, put that on a blog, and then people say there is a buzz out there that he's going to run. I don't believe any of it.
No, and I I grew weary of the story. When was it? When people started talking about it 5 months ago, I was weary of the story. I said, look, if you want to get in the race, get in the race. But until you're in this race, I'm not interested in the speculation about whether you're going to get into the race. We have too many things to do.
The Wall Street Journal political diary, the daily diary they send out, 2 days ago referred to him as indecisive. Sherman was indecisive compared to Christie.
Yeah, I mean
Sherman didn't offer to commit suicide to stop the speculation.
That was quite dramatic, wasn't it? Well, and then the Journal today has a piece as Chris Christie clamor, again, the buzz, the clamor George grows, his positions face scrutiny, and it goes through the judicial appointments he's made, his position on in-state college tuition, of course, his energy policies and his energy priorities, which the Journal said are much more in line with Barack Obama when it comes to solar, perhaps solar subsidies, other alternative fuel help that apparently has been funneled through the state, and his overall outlook on energy. So interesting nuggets, and that's just the beginning during this speculation. But I don't know what it says, but it can't say anything good that people spend so much time focusing on the guy who's not in the race. And apparently now Barbara Bush is talking to his wife saying it's okay. And so people say, well, the Bushes want him to get in. I don't know your phone. That's an interesting ring you have on that phone, George. What is that? Take me out to the ball game. Now we've made news on the Laura Ingraham Show. George Will's ringtone is "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," being the baseball aficionado that he is. Oh, that's good,
the organist for the Minnesota Twins. If you really want inside baseball trivia.
Okay, we really. Oh no, I want to talk about the Boston Red Sox too. But so the Chris Christie thing, you just think whether the Bushes are involved or not, that he's not getting in.
That is my firm conviction.
Okay. Let's we have to go back though before we talk about the Red Sox to the this Rick Perry issue, because his performance in the last debate was so, in my mind, stunningly bad that I only could conclude that he either wasn't moot courted by a real team of great people, or that he just didn't put time into it, or that he thought he could just kind of skate on what he knew in his reserve of knowledge. None of that's good, of course. But then he was asked about this Pakistan issue, and I got really worried. Let's listen.
Governor Perry, if you were present and you got a call at 3 a.m. telling you that Pakistan had lost control of its nuclear weapons at the hands of the Taliban, what would be your first move?
Well, obviously, before you ever get to that point, you have to build a relationship in that region. And that's one of the things that this administration has not done.
He went on to talk about, I guess, the sale of the F-16s or F-18s. But what did you make of all this, George?
Well, I think you put your finger on it. You said there were three possible explanations. They're really all the same explanation, and that is that he didn't try. He didn't work hard. Aside from the intellectual confusion, the fact is, after the first debate, he knew that in the second debate he was going to be pressed hard on immigration, the vaccine, and Social Security. And he was worse in the second debate than he was in the first debate, which indicates that he may not have any sense of how hard it is to play the game at this level. And there's no time to learn. And the country has had its fill of candidates trying to skate by on swagger.
Yeah, it doesn't fly. It doesn't give anyone a sense of confidence, or certainly doesn't inspire anyone, I think, to have him not even be able to tick off the Romney flip-flops. I mean, any random conservative blogger could tick off the Romney flip-flops, and if you're going to run against Romney, be up on stage, you got to say, ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da, you said this and this and this, then just have it trip off your tongue. But he really seemed like he was reaching in the clouds for the right phrase or the right content, even on that point, which is a pretty easy one.
Well, these debates have an odd format, and they're not seminars on political philosophy, but they do, with really quite remarkable efficiency, do what the political market is supposed to do. All markets are information-producing mechanisms. These are producing information, and the voters, who are the consumers in this case, are taking it in and coming to conclusions. And the remarkable efficiency of the first two debates in raising questions about Perry is healthy.
No, I think the more we learn about these guys under pressure or in these settings, the better for us. And any thoughts on now the left and the little surrogates who were popping up out on the left last night saying Herman Cain is a bigot because of his blacks are brainwashed comment. I mean, that's just so classic, isn't it? Now the black guy who's a Republican running for president shows that the Republicans are racist. Okay.
Well, the Florida straw poll, which was a Tea Party event, essentially, caused liberals' heads to explode because here was the racist Tea Party voting for a black man. And their whole narrative was temporarily discombobulated, but only temporarily. Their default position is to shout racism. And it's so deeply boring now that no one pays any attention.
No, they just this looks silly. Now, the Red Sox are truly going back to blue, right? There's no the red hats. Forget now it's blue. The whole city is blue. George, I've seen a lot of collapses in my year in baseball, but this was a historic meltdown, historic collapse, and I mean, we need to send grief counselors up to Boston. I mean, this is just a bad situation. I've been dying to talk to you about just this issue. Forget politics.
Well, they had a terrible April and a terrible September and 4 good months in between. The beauty of baseball, the 162-game long march, is that you can't take 2 months off. You can't. It's an old axiom in baseball. You can't win the pennant in April, but you can lose it. You can lose it by, I mean, those games count just as much in the standings as those in September, and they started off, 0-6? So they were an inconsistent team. So they put a lot of money into people who didn't perform this year, Carl Crawford for one, although I expect him to later. This happens. It's a steep pyramid in baseball, and those who play you got to get 27 outs in a game. You got to play 162 games, and it's a punishing, unforgiving game. And the Red Sox got punished.
August 9th, they were 2.5 games up, and I'm pretty much nobody was saying they were not going to be in at least the playoffs.
Exactly.
August 9th. This is wild. You know what I was thinking, George? Of course, I hearken back to my youth, which means like the previous century. But I hearken back to 78 and Yankees making up 14 games, 14 and a half games in 1978, and Bucky Dent hitting the
I think the Yankees were in 4th place when they were back then. So again, you got to keep playing.
No, it's I actually do feel bad for even my kids, George, because look, we have all sorts of baseball paraphernalia. We have St. Louis Cardinals team shirts. We have Yankees team shirts. We have the Boston team shirts. But my kids just love the Boston team shirts. And apparently, well, one of them was made fun of yesterday at school for wearing the Boston shirt because I didn't think and went to school and then, of course, totally teased. I said, why is everyone teasing me? I didn't even want to say really why. So it's a very, very sad day. George, thanks for coming on with us. We'll continue to try to make sense of the ridiculous buzz, clamor, speculation about Chris Christie, but I think you're right. Thanks so much.
Tell me, does being teased for a Red Sox jersey count as bullying? If so, it's a federal offense.
Actually, I'm taking it to the Obamas today. I'm actually the people who are the king of bulliers in corporate America. They bully corporate America all the time, the shakedown of the food industry and everything. So I'm going to take it to Michelle and Barack today. So thank you for reminding me. All right, you take care. George Will on the Laura Ingraham Show.